Okay, so I can save this now successfully, so I'm going to do that. Actually, I don't have to. I take that back. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip over to the grants.gov tab real quick, so I want to show you something about how to fill some of the information in for you. If this was going to be submitted, okay. We're in the grants.gov tab now, and I'm going to do a lookup. I'm going to try and remember. Let's see, 98, 93, 8. Trying to remember here. One that will give me a result. This is actually searching through a test system, so I have to pick stuff that's actually in the test system. It does take a minute to search because it's we do have some results. So I'm just going to pick the first one here. I'll show you why I'm doing that. So now that I've got that opportunity pulled in, you see the information actually would populate in from grants.gov. So here's the types of forms, here's the instruction page, here's the schema. The schema is what actually allows us to pull the forms. So there's the different forms that come along. Theoretically, obviously this is a test system. This is actually an NIH proposal, so I don't think I'd see PHS 398. So I'd obviously be in NSF 424s. But this is a test system, so it's just pulling in some information to be able to show you what it's capable of doing. You don't see anything under the submission details section because obviously we haven't submitted yet. Once we submit, you would see the submission information, and it would also be pulling information about the status of it. So you get that information immediately. All right, so the reason I did this is because I want to go back to the proposal tab again here real quick and show you that it fills in some information on that tab as well. So it saves you that step of having to add it in. Again, because it's a test system, we're not seeing all the data being pulled in, just some. You have a much better, in production, you get a much better feel for this. You get much better data imported in. So if you had a deadline date, you're going to put this guy in there. The deadline's today, of course, isn't it always? I mean, obviously it's going to be receipt. I don't think anybody does postmarks anymore, but they still have it in there. If this was like say you were doing something for FEMA and you wanted to show the prime sponsor ID was, is it Homeland Security now? I think FEMA works under. You could put that information in here. If this is an NSF proposal, you can pick the NSF code. If there's a sponsored div code you want to put in, you can put that in. You've got your information about your notice of opportunity, so it's a federal solicitation. Again, some of this information should have been updated automatically. If there's a sponsor proposal ID, you can put that in here. Does it include subawards? Highlight that. And any sponsor program code you want to put in. So now you've got the information about the sponsor as well right on this first page. If this was related to an award, because sometimes awards come in and there aren't actually proposals in the system. I'm sure you guys have all received an unsolicited check. You can put that information in. You can search for it within the system and get the award ID. If it's tied to an institutional proposal that already exists out there, you can link it here as well. So it does allow for some flexibility of the process, not actually going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because as we know, it doesn't always do that. So organization information is populated in automatically. So this one's set up to be the university, to be MIT. So it's got their MIT information in it. Obviously, it would have your information in it. It shows things like congressional districts here, under who's the applicant and where's the work actually being performed. There is a lot of flexibility again here, with allowing you to add additional performance site locations. So what you would do is you add them to what they call your Rolodex. So if you're actually doing some work off-site, you can put that information in there and tie them in. If you're doing it at other locations within your university or institution, you can do that as well. All right, so here's your delivery information. If you wanted to track, who's responsible sending it, how many copies have to go, all that kind of information, you can do that here. And down below, we have a section for keywords. Keywords are pretty cool because you can actually search for keywords within the system. So, I mean, while this is, let's say, an NSF proposal, and you can pretty easily find all the proposals you did for NSF, you might want to highlight this as an ARRA report proposal, for example. So you could put the keyword ARRA in here. You could put, any keyword in here. You could put multiple keywords in here. There's no limit to what you can do here. This has the same functionality again, where you got this lookup, and I'll show you real quick just for fun. So I'm going to hit search without doing anything, so I'm going to get all of them. So there's your keywords that are listed in the system so far. You can put as many as you want in here. There were a lot more in here. I thought this was going to be much more impressive, but obviously they've changed this since the last time I did it. You can select a bunch. You don't have to do just one. You can return all three of them. So now all three of these keywords are going to be tied to my proposal. So you'll see them down here below. And from here, you can easily delete them as well. So you can highlight all of them, delete all of them. Let's say, oh, I didn't mean to get, amphipods here, so we're going to delete that one. It's a pretty simple, standard web-based functionality, right? I mean, you click on a button, it refreshes. Casey is not a Web 2.0 application yet, so you're going to get a lot of like screen refreshes. Currently, the screens are a little bit hard to navigate in terms of, we've got to scroll up and down to get all this information on the screen. I would anticipate that you're going to see some pretty massive modifications of this over the next probably 2 years. This is really more of, let's get that functionality out there. This is obviously much better than having nothing or having an Access database out there. I want to have some kind of web-based application. But I really look at this interface still, even though we're in 3.01, I consider this kind of a 1.0 interface. All right, so far so good. I'm going to go to key personnel now. Now again, if I hadn't filled out information on that last page properly, it would have flagged me with errors, and it would have kept me on that page, and it would have told me what the errors are. It's pretty good at doing that. So you see this little message right here. That message would say, error in the system, and oftentimes the error messages are listed in red either right below that message or at the bottom of the tab, depending on which tab you're on. So it does give you good information. I'll show you a little bit. There's also a way to set up the process so that it's doing really extreme checking all the time, like an auditing process. And I would recommend it's called validation. So I recommend you might want to try to put a proposal in with validation on like the first time just to kind of see all the things that it's going to absolutely require you to put in. But I think you would want to jump off a very tall building if you did it every time, because it really doesn't let you move at all, and there's just some things that you don't know right off the rip. So I definitely would not recommend leaving it on all the time. You can turn it on at the end, and it always validates before you submit. All right, so I'm going to add some key personnel here. Again, it has this Rolodex thought process, so employees are employees within your system that you search, but non-employees come out of that Rolodex. We're gonna pull from the employee table. We're gonna search all again. So I click on the search button. Again, I'm gonna hit that return value. We're gonna pick somebody at random here. Pick Inez. Shoot. And so now Inez is showing right here. Now we're gonna select what's her role. She's gonna be okay. So this terminology changed based on the fact that we picked NSF. You would have co-PI if it was an NIH award and any other standard ones, but they like to try and put the wording in here so people kind of know, okay, this is NSF, so we're going to have a principal and a co-investigator. Okay, so we're going to add Inez. Now I'm going to add a couple more people real quick just so I can show you some other functionality. So apologize for making you go through this 3 times, but I want to kind of show you how it handles this. So let's see, Andrew. Excuse me. That Andrew is. We got to add personnel after each one of these so that you'll see that now Inez and Andrew are showing up down below in their own tabs. We're going to add one more person as a key personnel, so we show the distinction related to the credit splits that come up below. Click on Claudia. And just key personnel. So then we have to put in a little bit of description. All right, so now we've got 3 people, excuse me, listed here. So we got, and their titles are right here. So obviously you could have 3, you could have 33, however many, you could have 1. Whatever whatever you need, you're going to put in there. You can see below it has some credit split stuff already put in here. So there's some standards that are in the system. You can modify these 4 columns. You can add up to 8. So depending on how much, how you want to be tracking the credit that's being applied to work that's being done, you can set up those standards. They all have to add up to 100%, which is a lot of fun. So you got to make sure that they add up like within a person and then within overall too, because like Inez is in cardiology and on the campus supposedly, so she would have to be like 100 here and 100 here for this credit split to be adding up properly. All right, so now again, we could delete these folks by checking on them. We're not going to do that because we just spent all that time putting them in here. So let's go into Inez and let's show what we've got so far for her. So she's got some person details in here. This is those extended attributes I was talking about earlier. This stuff could be set up to pull in from a system where you could update it in the system and keep it up to date. So you have this information for anywhere else within the process. Inez actually has some pretty decent information in here. In some of the test data, we have very little information at all. You could put in all of her degrees in here separately. You could put in the information about the unit that she's with. So if you want to add another unit, for example, maybe she's related to these two units, but for whatever reason she's doing work in another unit, you can add that in. That would then show down in the credit split below. And these are her certification questions. She's going to have to actually answer these questions in order to be able to submit this proposal. I'll leave some of that stuff out because I want to show you the validation on how it does that. And I'm going to actually remove these two guys because I don't want to have to go through all that for 3 people. I just want to show you the adding of them. So obviously the credit split should look a lot easier now, right? So make my life easier. So we're going to say she's doing all of her work within cardiology. Actually, I'll leave that one blank so we get an error. All right. So that's how you get your key personnel into the system. And again, we're at a proposal level here. We're not talking about a budget at this point, so we don't do, like, at this stage, what percentage are they applied, for example. You guys have any questions about that section? Okay. Go on then. All right. We're going to go to special review. This is a section where, for example, if you're going to be doing studies with animals, so you got animal usage, you could say it's pending. I don't have a protocol number yet. I can put in my application date. I applied, on Monday. You can also put in, obviously, you can put in as many of these as you want. So if you needed multiple, you're doing other work that you want to be tracking here that needs a special review, you can put all this information in. The nice thing about KC is there's the ability to copy proposals. So if you knew you were going to be doing a lot of work for NIH that was going to be very similar, you create one proposal, and then you can make that like a template that you can copy into other ones. So let's say you had 5 things you wanted to have show up in this all the time. They would show up all the time. It doesn't mean that they can't be modified, deleted, that more can't be added, but it does make it easier for people to kind of understand, oh, these are the 4 things that I need to do, or the 5 things that I need to do. It's right in front of me as I see it going on. So again, there's your pop-up. You can add more actions. It's as we go forward, currently the IRB module is completed, but I will tell you that it's not really tied into the application yet. What will happen in the future is the ability to actually set up that I want a protocol or to pull in a protocol that's already out there. So all the information will flow into the system from here, from the IRB module. I believe that's coming in the next release, which is in July. Any questions about special review? I'll take that 3-second silence as a no, but again, stop me anytime. If you want me to go back, just hop on. Custom data is a section that's completely customizable by your institution. There's some stuff in here right now. This stuff was just created for the purposes of messing around. You can see somebody had a little fun here. They made a section called ASDF, ASDF, ASDF over and over and over again, and they put in some information called number of trainees, cost-sharing budget, billing elements, and local review dates. So you can see you can put in things like dates. You can actually use drop-downs in here, currency, text. You can require some of these fields, because you can see this billing element is going to be required. And you can determine the folder names of this data if you want to group it, and you can determine the individual fields that are in there. So there's an example of one that's coming from a drop-down. So it's going to be yes or no. And there's another required. It's going to require me to put in a graduate student count here. Open 0. So this is a really powerful section, because if KC doesn't do something you need, doesn't track something you track related to proposals, you put it in here. And it's really that simple. The only downside to that is as they come out with some standard reporting tools, which is supposed to come out in December, obviously custom data wouldn't be something that was rolled into that process, so you'd need to have somebody who would be able to modify your reports in order to be able to pull that information.